In this video, I'm going to show you how to use sum, count, and average functions. You can find sum under the math and trig category, whereas count and average could be found under the statistical category. Now, let me demonstrate the sum function. Here, I want to compute total sales using the quarterly sales data in the cell range B3 to B14. I'm going to click on the cell F3 and enter equals sum open parentheses. You can see the information displayed here with the sum function structure. This information is useful if I'm going to type the function directly into the cell. But I'm not going to type the function. Instead, I will use the dialog box. Now, I'm going to click FX icon and open the dialog box for sum function. Inside the dialog box, I'm going to click on the button next to the number 1 argument box and select the range B3 to B14. You can see the range B3 to B14 in the argument box, and the values stored in the cells B3 to B14 are also displayed next to the argument box. And, further down in the dialog box, you can see the formula result, 1297. What if one of the cells in the range contained a text but not a number? As you know, text values cannot be added unlike number values. A formula will throw a value error if one of the input cells has a text value. Sum function, on the other hand, doesn't throw an error. Instead, it is designed to ignore empty cells and the cells containing text. You can see the value in B3 is a text and the value in B13 is null, but the sum function has ignored these values while adding. Now, let me move on to count function. It returns the number of values in the input cell range. This time, allow me to click FX here and open the function dialog box. I'm going to type count in the search box and click go. You can see the count function at the top of the functions box. I will double click on the count to open the count function dialog box. And in the argument box, I'm going to select the range B3 to B14 and click OK. You can see that the function has returned a count of 10 instead of 12. This is because, just like the sum function, the count function is designed to ignore cells that have values other than numbers. Now, let me take up the average function. The average function returns the arithmetic mean of the values in the input cell range. I'm going to enter the cell range B3 to B14 in the argument box, just as was done in sum and count functions. You can see that it returns a value of 129.7. This is the arithmetic mean of the values in the input range excluding values in the cell B3 and B13, because B3 has text value and B13 is an empty cell. The average function returns a value which is equal to the value obtained by dividing the results of the sum and the count functions. Here you can see sum has returned 1297 and count has returned 10. Therefore, average should return 129.7. In this video, I'm going to cover the function SUMPRODUCT. Let me consider data on the number of hours worked and rate per hour for 2 contractors. I want to compute the total payments to be made to these 2 contractors. For that, I have to find the product of a column A and B values in each row and then sum them. In other words, I have to sum the row-wise products. The function SUMPRODUCT is designed to precisely meet this type of requirement. It will first compute row-wise products and then sum the row products. Now, let me show you the SUMPRODUCT dialog box. The input cell ranges are called arrays. There has to be a minimum of 2 array arguments in order to compute the SUMPRODUCT. In this case, we have a pair of cell ranges, one each for the contractors 1 and 2. They have to be entered in the dialog box as array 1 and array 2. Let us find the total payment for contractor 1 first and then do the same for the contractor 2. I'm going to enter the cell ranges A3 to A6 and B3 to B6 as input array 1 and 2 respectively. You can see that the total payment is given by SUMPRODUCT function is $470. For contractor 2, I'm going to enter the cell ranges A10 to A12 and B10 to B12 as array 1 and 2 respectively. You can see that the total payment as given by SUMPRODUCT function is $290. Here, you notice that the SUMPRODUCT function has ignored the text values in the cells A11 and B11. Ignoring text values in empty cells is a common feature amongst most functions. Let me go back to comparing function and formula with respect to text values. Let me demonstrate the difference by computing the payment using cell formula instead of SUMPRODUCT function. I'm going to enter the formula for computing payments for contractor 2 in cell E11. You can see the formula is throwing a value error. This is because cell formulas do not ignore text cells. In SUMPRODUCT, the arrays should have matching cell ranges. You would have noticed that the arrays A3 to A6 and B3 to B6 have the same number of cells. Similarly, the arrays A10 to A12 and B10 to B12 have the same number of cells. This is because, in order to get row products, the arrays have to contain the same number of values. If one array has more number of values than the other, then SUMPRODUCT will throw a value error. In this video, I'm going to explain AutoFunction. AutoSum, AutoAverage, and AutoCount are auto versions of their traditional counterparts, sum, average, and count. The question, however, is, what does AutoSum do which sum can't do? AutoSum intuitively detects and uses a nearby cell range for argument, whereas you have to fill input cell range arguments in some function. Now, I'm going to demonstrate how to use AutoSum, AutoCount, and AutoAverage. For this, I'm going to use this data set which has sales values across 4 regions and 4 quarters. Let me start with AutoSum. I'm going to select B2 to E6 and then click on AutoSum icon in the ribbon. You can see that the cells B6 to E6 is populated with quarter-wise sum of sales values. I could do this without entering arguments. AutoSum intuitively understood that the sales value in each column is an argument, and the results should be entered in the cell below the sales value. How did AutoSum judge that it should sum values in columns? Because it first detached a blank row of cells B6 to E6 towards the bottom of the dataset, and judged that it was meant for displaying the sum. How about finding regions-wise sum of sales values? This time, I'm going to select B2 to F5 and then click on AutoSum icon on the ribbon. You can see that the cells F2 to F5 has the regions-wise sum. AutoSum detected a blank column of cells B6 to E6 towards the right of the dataset, and judged that it was meant for displaying the sum. Next, let us use AutoSum to sum values in both rows as well as columns. For this, let me consider sales data in cell range A9 to E13. I'm going to select B10 to F14 and then click on the AutoSum icon on the ribbon. You can see that AutoSum has computed sum for each of the quarters in cells B14 to E14, and sum for each region in cells F10 to F13. In addition, the cell F14 has the grand total, which is the sales for the entire year across quarters and across regions. Let us now focus on AutoAverage function. For this, you consider sales data in cell range J1 to N5. I'm going to select K6 to N6, which is the row at the bottom of the dataset, and then click on the down arrow beside the AutoSum icon on the ribbon. You can see a drop-down list of auto functions. You can see the item, average just below the sum. The item average in this list means AutoAverage. I'm going to select average. Observe that the cells K6 to N6 is filled with the average sales values. How did AutoAverage judge that it was average K2 to K5 for the cell K6? It intuitively judged the user wants the average of the values in cells directly above the selected cell. It detected the data cell range as K2 to K5. Then it used the argument K2 to K5 to find the average. This built-in intelligence of detecting the data range is the auto feature. Now I'm going to compute region-wise average sales. Select the cell range O2 to O5 and then select average in the drop-down list next to the sum icon on the ribbon. You can see that the cells O2 to O5 has the average for each of the regions. How did AutoAverage judge that it should average K2 to N2 for the cell O2? It intuitively judged the user wants the average of the values in cells to the left of the selected cell. It detected the data cell range as K2 to N2. Then it used the argument K2 to N2 to find the average. There's a method of input cell range detection. AutoAverage detects input ranges either above the selected range or below the selected cell. What if I select the cell O6 and perform AutoAverage? Let me do it. You can see that the cell O6 has the grand average, which is the average across quarters and regions. How did it detect the input cell range as O2 to O5? Because O2 to O5 lies towards the cell O6. It intuitively judged that the user wants the grand average in O6, and then detected this data cell range O2 to O5. Finally, let me take up AutoCount. AutoCount counts the number of observations, but with a difference. It intuitively detects the input cell range and executes the count function. For this, let me use the transaction data in J8 to K15. You can see that some transaction amounts are missing and marked as NA. Let me select K9 to K15 and then click on the down arrow beside AutoSum icon on the ribbon, and select Count Numbers in the drop-down. You can see that the cell K16 has the count of the number of transactions. AutoCount intuitively understood that the count values have to be filled in K16. In this video, I'm going to cover autofill function. Some of you must have dragged the mouse down a serial number column and filled serial numbers, but you would not have understood that you were executing a autofill function. In this video, let me explain how autofill detects and completes the series. In mathematics, a series is a list of values in which subsequent value is computed by adding a constant to its previous value. To start with, let me consider only one number and fill the series. Here, the cell A1 has the value 1. I'm going to select A1 and drag the fill icon till A11. Remember, fill icon is a thin cross when you hover over the right-hand bottom corner of this cell. The cells A2 to A11 get filled with the value 1. We can't even say if the cells are filled or merely copied. In order to understand the fill function, you should have at least two values at the beginning. Let us consider the column C, where the cells C1 and C2 have values 1 and 2 respectively. I'm going to select C1 and C2 and drag the fill icon till C11. You can see autofill has filled the range with the serial numbers. How did autofill understand that it has to fill serial numbers? First, it computed that C2 is C1 plus 1. Then it applied the logic to add 1 to C2 to fill the C3, and so on. Now, let us consider using autofill to fill an even number series. Here, cells E1 and E2 have values 2 and 4, where E2 has an increment of 2 over E1. Autofill fills the rest of the series with even numbers when you drag the fill icon. Similarly, one can fill an odd number series. I'm going to select G1 and G3 and drag to fill till G11. You can see autofill has filled an odd number series. Now let us look at the cells I1 and I2. The cell I2 has an increment of 3 over the value in the cell I1. All series are derived by adding, but one can also call them as multiplication series. When I autofill, you can see the series is filled with multiples of the value 3. Autofill also works horizontally. You can complete a series in a row. I will show you this. Select A14 to B14 and drag till L14. You can see autofill has filled the series. Until now, we dealt with number series. How about series of calendar items such as date, day, month, year, and so on? Let us consider column A. The value in the cell A is a date in month, day, year format. The date is 30th January 2019. If I select A1 and drag the fill icon down till A11, what would be filled? Will it copy text values or fill date values? It fills date values. You can see dates are entered properly. Autofill has used the calendar logic and filled 31st January 2019 after 30th January 2019. And after 31st January 2019, it is filled 1st of February. You observe that it did not fill January 32nd, 2019. You can ask, will autofill detect leap year? Let's try that out. Go to column C and select till C11. You can see autofill has filled February 29th after February 28th. This is because 2020 is a leap year. Let us test this again. Go to column E and try to autofill the date. You can see autofill has filled March 1st after February 28th. This is because 2019 is not a leap year. Now let us turn towards weekday series. Let me go to G1 and enter Sunday and drag the fill icon. You can see the weekdays series is filled. Let me show you some guesswork done by autofill. I'm going to enter sun in H1 and tease autofill to guess my intent. It understands sun is a short form of Sunday and fills the weekday series. However, if I try sunned instead of sun, then autofill doesn't recognize that as a weekday. Now, let us look at a series of names of calendar months. I'm going to enter December in K1 and autofill the series. it recognizes month series and fills. Similarly, autofill recognizes the short form of December, which is DEC. In column L, you can see autofill has recognized DEC and completed the series. However, it can't recognize December. Autofill thinks it is a text, and text values cannot be filled as series. So, if you try to autofill the value on M1, it just copies the values down the column. In this video, I'm going to introduce a new function called flashfill. This is new to you and relatively new in Excel also. At the outset, let me explain what does flashfill do and how is it different from autofill. Flashfill completes a series of text values, whereas autofill completes a series of number and dates. Flashfill recognizes patterns and values, whereas autofill recognizes increments in values. Let me demonstrate this by using flashfill to concatenate text in two columns. The table at the top of the worksheet has title, the first name, and the last name of a person. And I'm going to concatenate these to create a list of complete names. For this, I have to manually write the full name of the first individual in cell D2. This is to indicate my intention to flashfill. And then, I'm going to select the cell range D2 to D5 and click flashfill. You can see that the column D has the list of complete names. Now, let me show you the other way around. Let me ask flashfill to extract the first name and the last name from a list of complete names. The complete names are stored in cell range A9 to A12. I'm going to manually enter the first name in the cell B9 and the last name in the cell C9, and then select the cell range B9 to B12 and click Flash Fill. You can see Flash Fill has extracted the first name in B10, B11, and B12. Similarly, selecting the cell range C9 to C12 will extract the last name. Can we use Flash Fill to extract a part of the text? For instance, can we extract months from the dates stored as text? Or can we extract domain names from an email list? The answer is yes. The flashfill can do that for you. Let me show you this. Here we have the dates in A15 to A18, and I'm going to enter the name of the month as July in B15. Then select B15 to B18 and click flashfill. You can see that flashfill has understood my intention and extracted months in B16, B17, and B18. Similarly, you can extract domain names from a list of email addresses. Here we have email addresses in cells A22 to A25. And in cell B22, I'm going to enter the domain name knowledgevarsity.com. This is just to prep the flashfill. Then select B23 to B25 and click flashfill. You can see flashfill has followed my intention and filled domain names for the rest of the email addresses.